I found were some tomatoes called kumatos. A kumato. This is a brown tomato. OMG. So let me just show you a little bit about how I like to cut my tomatoes. So of course it's washed. And when cutting anything, I like to square, put my fingers like way back like this. Thumb on top, hold the 4 fingers. And I like to just cut the bottom off first. And then I just turn it over. And this was the tomato I actually grew. So this one is a little bruised. It was on my counter for like 4 days. So it's a little bruised. But I like to cut this part off also. Move it over to the side and actually like it to be flat. I turn it this way. And for this particular recipe, I just cut it down the middle. I put this one over to the side and I start here. So the recipe calls for thin slices. So with scrunching up my fingers, I'm just gonna just slice thinly. And so it calls for an onion. So I already cut up a little bit of onion. So I'm just gonna take the other half that I've already actually cleaned. And of course I like it to be flat. So the recipe calls for the moon-shaped cuts very, very thin again. I'll do my best to try to cut them thin. So we have our onions, we have our tomatoes. I'm gonna just pull a couple of pieces of basil. You know what I really like to do with fresh herbs? I like to cut these off and then I like to rip them. I just like to rip the leaves off. So how about I do that? I take the leaves off and this just happens to have like really long stems, but I'm gonna take these stems off. And what I like to do is rip. I like to rip the basil, rip. And you know why I like to do that? Because when I'm doing that with fresh herbs, it smells so good. It smells so good. You could just smell the herbs. And it's okay if you don't rip them evenly. This is the basil. I'm just ripping it. And it's not even at all, but it's okay. It's all gonna go in a mixing bowl and it's all gonna taste good once we zhuzh it all together. I do like cilantro. So the recipe really calls for basil or cilantro. But if you're like me and you just kind of like flavor, you're gonna use basil and cilantro. As I was looking it over, I said, oh, this is a very simple recipe. So you can use the tomatoes, the onions, like I just did here, a tablespoon of oil. I'm using olive oil, but of course you can use any kind of oil that you have in the pantry, and a little bit of salt and pepper. Very, very simple recipe. So yeah, so by the time the onions get to the salad, they're a little bit softer and they're not as pungent. So it's not a real hard oniony taste. And this actually looks very pretty. We're probably gonna eat this for lunch, you guys. And it's so fresh. And again, the Chileans, this is a summer salad that they eat like daily in the summertime. I read an article about this particular salad. It's flavorful. It's full of really good vitamins. Because when the salad marinates a little bit, it tastes better. So of course, I'm buying my time before I have to taste it with you guys. Let me just move it back over here. Let me get my cutting board. I'm gonna cut it like I cut all the rest of my tomatoes. I'm gonna cut the back off. And I'm just gonna cut the front. I can have it flat. You guys can see that. I'm gonna cut it in half so I can actually show you guys what it looks like. So this is what it looks like on the inside of the brown tomato called kumato. I'm gonna cut a slice and just kind of like taste it for you guys. I'm gonna just taste it for you guys. Okay, you're not gonna believe this. The way it looks, it does not taste like that. This is a sweet tomato, sweet. It's like, you don't even have to add salt because you can kind of taste like, it's so flavorful. But the biggest note is that it's sweet. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna move these over to the side. But you know what? I don't really have to do that with this because it's so small. I'm just gonna cut it in half so we can like look at it. And for this, I actually hold my hand, hold the tomato in place because it's smaller, and I just cut it in half. This is what it looks like on the inside. It looks yellow. So this is the wild tomato, it's the yellow one. I'm telling you, this is the best job ever. This yellow tomato tastes like a tomato and it's sweet. Not as sweet as the kumato, but it is so sweet and good. Yes, definitely use it in a salad. So of course, it's marinated a little bit. I have a little bit of onion. I have a little bit of the basil, a little bit of the cilantro. And so now I'm going to try it for you guys. I don't mind tasting for you guys. I'll get a little bit of the onion. And yeah, the onions cut real thin, tomatoes cut real thin. This would really go well with any kind of protein that you have. Specifically thinking fish, only because it's so light and summery and airy. It's so good, but it's so light. You don't have to add lettuce to it or anything else to it, unless you want a little bit of vinegar for a little bit of tang.